You won't believe what happened next. Picture this. You're tired, burned out, and just want to go home. You've had one of those weeks, the kind where your phone won't stop buzzing, every meeting runs long, and your brain feels like scrambled eggs by Friday. That was David Langston's week in Phoenix. All he wanted was some peace, a window seat, and a few hours of silence on a flight back to Dallas. Instead, what he got was a showdown at 30,000 feet. David was early, like always. He hated rushing. Something about strolling through an airport, coffee in hand, calmed him. He liked to watch people, families wrangling toddlers, business types glued to laptops, couples bickering about carry-ons. Airports, to him, were little society petri dishes, full of tiny stories that said everything about how people treated each other. He rolled his leather carry-on behind him, double-checked the monitor, and made his way to the lounge. Grey polo, dark jeans, sneakers. Nothing flashy, but if you watched him long enough, you could tell. This man had presence, confidence, not arrogance. Sipping coffee by the lounge window, he scrolled through his phone and chuckled at a headline. Another airline CEO apologizing for a booking disaster. He muttered, "They never learn." 10 minutes later, boarding alert buzzed. Jacket on, coffee drained, he headed for the gate. It was the usual chaos, everyone crowding the lanes, even though their groups weren't called yet. David sighed and scanned the area. And that's when he saw her. Blonde hair, neatly cut, pearl earrings, cream blazer. She had the look of someone used to getting her way. Confident, maybe too much. She stood near the first-class line, tapping her phone, glancing around with impatience. David didn't think twice about it. Just another frequent flyer trying to board early. When his group was called, he moved forward, scanned his phone, and headed down the jet bridge. He was steps away from his sanctuary, seat 2A, his peace, his reward. Except when he reached the row, someone was already in it, settled, handbag tucked in, sparkling water in hand. That same woman from the gate. She looked up, smiled politely, then returned to her phone. David blinked, once, twice. No mistake. This was his seat. He cleared his throat. "Excuse me, I think you might be in my seat. That's 2A, right?" She glanced at him and smiled tighter. "I'm in 2A, she said, like that was the end of it. David stayed calm. "I don't think so. My boarding pass says 2A. Maybe double-check yours." For a second, her posture shifted, but then she raised her phone and said loudly, "It says 2A right here." David leaned in. Didn't want to cause a scene, but he saw it clearly. The screen said 3C, a different seat, a different row. "That says 3C, he pointed out, voice even. She chuckled softly. No, I always fly 2A. David stared. "Seats change. You don't get lifetime rights." "Well, maybe they printed it wrong," she shrugged, "but I'm comfortable here." The cabin air changed. A few passengers looked up. Eyes darted. Tension built. David stood his ground. "Ma'am, the boarding pass says 3C. Mine says 2A. Please move." She crossed her arms. "Maybe you should sit in 3C. Problem solved." That was it. A few passengers murmured. Someone said, "That's not how it works." David inhaled, thought of all the boardrooms he'd had to fight his way into, all the assumptions, all the times he had to prove he belonged. This felt like that. Small moment, big meaning. "With all due respect," he said, calm but firm, "I paid for 2A. I'm not moving." A flight attendant appeared, Kelly, per her name tag, wearing that customer service smile that tries to diffuse things before they blow up. "Is there a problem?" "Yes," David replied. She's in my seat. Kelly looked at them, then the boarding passes. She paused, long enough for David to notice. That tiny flicker of hesitation, that unspoken calculation. Then she turned to the woman. "Ma'am, your seat is 3C. David nodded. But the woman, Caroline as it turned out, didn't budge. "That must be a mistake. I always sit near the front. I booked first class weeks ago." Kelly stayed polite. 3C is still in first class, but 2A is his. She turned to David. "Can I see your boarding pass?" He handed it over. No hesitation. She scanned, nodded. "Yes, you're in the right seat." Caroline scoffed. "Why should I move? I'm already here. He can take 3C. It's just one row." David felt that familiar pressure again. The quiet demand to be reasonable, to make it easy, to step aside. He looked at Kelly, waiting for her to insist Caroline move. But instead she said, "Maybe, just for today, you could take 3C, sir, so we can avoid delays." The words hit like a punch. People shifted. They knew what they'd just heard. Kelly chose convenience over fairness. Caroline smiled. David tilted his head. "So she takes my seat. You confirm it's mine, and I'm the one who should move?" "I'm just trying to make it easier," Kelly replied. Caroline chimed in. "Exactly. It's not a big deal." David stayed calm. "It is a big deal. I followed the rules. I paid for this seat. And now I'm told it doesn't matter." Someone behind him whispered, "He's right." Another agreed. Caroline crossed her arms tighter. "I've been a loyal customer for 15 years. David smirked. "Me too. Plus I own stock in this airline, so maybe I deserve some respect too." That got her attention, but she still wouldn't move. Kelly looked trapped. Then another attendant appeared. Mark. Tall, slick, smile like it was stapled on. "What's going on?" Kelly explained. Mark looked at both passengers, then said, "Sir, if you could take 3C, we can get going." David blinked. "Even after checking both tickets?" "It's just one seat back," Mark said. "Same service." Caroline added, "He's being difficult." David felt his jaw tighten. "Do you hear yourselves? You're rewarding her for ignoring the rules." Mark raised a hand. "We're just trying to de-escalate." David cut him off. "I've done enough de-escalating in my life. Not today." Kelly tried again. "Mr. Langston," he raised his voice slightly. "No. You keep asking me to compromise, but not her. Why?" Silence. He turned to the cabin. "You all see this, right? They confirmed it's my seat, but I'm told to move. How often does this happen?" A woman 2 rows back called out, "He's right." Another added, "Give the man his seat." Caroline muttered, "I booked first class like everyone else. Maybe there's a glitch." "No glitch," David replied. "Just entitlement." Mark tried again. "Sir, please lower your voice." David stared him down. "No, I've lowered my voice too many times." The cabin held its breath. The tension crackled. Kelly whispered to Mark, "We need to call the captain." David heard it. He calmly put his carry-on in the overhead bin, took off his jacket, and sat in 2A. Caroline gasped. "You can't just—" "Watch me," David said. This was no longer about a seat. This was about dignity. Mark crouched beside him. "Sir, if you don't cooperate, we may need to involve the captain." David leaned back. "Do what you need to do. I'm not moving." Phones were out now, passengers recording. Caroline clutched her phone like a shield. "You're being aggressive," she snapped. David laughed. No humor in it. "Aggressive? For sitting in my seat?" Kelly looked nervous, whispered again. Mark went to the cockpit. The captain emerged. Salt and pepper hair, commanding presence. What seems to be the problem? Kelly and Mark explained. The captain asked for boarding passes. He looked them over. Seat 2A belongs to Mr. Langston. David nodded. Obvious truth, finely spoken. Caroline protested. I always sit here. The captain replied, It's not his job to fix your mistake, it's yours to move. Gasps. Applause. Caroline turned red. She whispered to the captain, Are you going to let him cause a scene? David heard it. He stood slowly. If this plane can't leave, because people won't acknowledge the truth, then it won't leave at all. The captain frowned. Sir, David cut in. I'm not asking. I'm telling you. This won't be swept under the rug. He sat again. Calm. Cameras rolling. Another passenger said, He's right. A woman added, This wouldn't even be a conversation if the roles were reversed. Caroline flared. Are you implying something about me? The woman didn't blink. We're all looking at the same facts. Caroline called it harassment. David replied, You're dragging this out, not me. Captain sighed. I'm calling operations. The door reopened. 2 new people stepped on. Angela Ruiz and a man with a tablet. Angela, we're here to resolve this. She took both boarding passes, compared them. Seat 2A belongs to Mr. Langston, 3C to Miss Whitmore. More applause. Caroline's face crumbled. Angela was firm. You're in the wrong seat. Caroline sputtered. I always fly here. Angela didn't flinch. Move to your assigned seat or be removed. The man added, Mr. Langston is a shareholder. This delay cost us thousands. This shouldn't have happened. Kelly and Mark looked like they wanted to disappear. Caroline muttered and finally stood, walked to 3C. Soft claps followed her. David didn't smile, just adjusted his jacket. Angela apologized. David replied, Make sure your staff learns from this. She nodded. The door closed. The plane pushed back. The story wasn't about a seat anymore. As Phoenix faded below, David stared out the window, calm, not triumphant, just resolved. Caroline stayed silent. Every shift in her seat was a quiet acknowledgement of what had just happened. Hours later, in Dallas, passengers stopped David. You spoke for a lot of us, one said. David just nodded. Thank you. Outside the terminal, he drafted an email, not to friends, but to the airline board, not asking for an apology, demanding change, training, accountability. Because it wasn't just about one chair in the sky. It was about respect and the decision to stop shrinking in places you've earned the right to stand tall. If this story made you think, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because respect isn't optional, and silence should never be the cost of peace.